Guys, just wanted to talk to you a little bit about Magpul's new PMAG for the 7.62 bolt action rifle. I've only been playing with this for a little while, so in the interest of full disclosure, I haven't done any live fire with this thing yet, but I wanted to show you something I found kind of neat when comparing it to the standard, which are the Accuracy International magazines. Um, Big difference, obviously. One's a 5 round, and the 10 rounds haven't been released yet from Magpul, but probably before the end of the year here, we're thinking. The neat thing is the price is going to be like half the cost. These run between about 80 and 90 bucks for the 10 rounders, and they're going to be about 40 for a 10 rounder from Magpul, so that's a big difference. I measured the inside I don't know, I guess the inside length from the back of the magazine to the front where the little spacer plate is on the AI, and from the back to the front on the Magpul, and I got basically the same measurement. It was, I think, 2.885 inches. And if I'm off, give or take 1 or 2 thousandths here and there, that's still pretty interesting because there was a lot of speculation that be able to make a magazine that was thick enough in the right places without compromising some of that space inside the mag, and be able to do it with a plastic or a polymer. And they did do it, and it's still the same inner dimensions. So these rounds that you see loaded in these two magazines, that's my hand load for my 308 here, and they're loaded long. They're about 50 thousandths over specification. I think it's 2.81 is supposed to be the maximum book cartridge overall length, and these measure over 2.86. They're loaded, the bullet's seated farther out of the case, and they fit and they feed like buttery smooth out of this Magpul mag. I'm really sort of surprised it worked out as well as it did. In fact, it feeds really, really well, and I think part of the reason is with the AI mags, I've got 10 in here, so there's not much room left. I pulled the firing pin assembly out of the bolt here, so there's no way to set anything off. But I wanted to show you, when I set this up, when I put the AI mag in, because I've got 10 rounds in there and that spring is pushing so tightly against the bolt, when you run the bolt, it tends to hang up. It's got to force the round out from under the feed lips of the AI mag and up the ramp, and you get this sort of like contact on the top and contact on the bottom, and it kind of drags because I've loaded these kind of long. I could probably make them feed a lot smoother if I wanted to load them short, but I get really good ballistics the way I've got it set up now, and it's got a nice tight standard deviation when I fire them over a chronograph, so I want to kind of leave it how it is. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But I wanted to show you just the difference in feeding between the AI mag with 10 and the Magpul mag with 5. I realize one's a 5 round and one's a 10, but they're both loaded to their max. This is a 5 round, that's a 10. They both have the maximum in there. And what you'll see what I'm saying? Like it's I gotta kind of fight with it a little bit, and that does get better as I go. Like, as I eject more rounds out of the magazine and the pressure from the spring of the magazine loosens up, they start to feed a lot smoother. But those first couple of rounds, you really got to kind of like, you got to force it a little bit sometimes, depending on how clean the magazine is and if there's any dirt in it or anything else. And I'll do the same thing with the Magpul, and there's no resistance at all from the word go. It's just, that's my fault. So it feeds through all 5 rounds out of the Magpul without slowing down. There's no resistance, there's no anything. Part of the reason for that, I think, just having a look at this, here in the workroom, if you can see, the feed lips here on the AI mag, they start farther forward and they maintain control of the round a lot farther forward on the actual magazine. You got to push the bullet farther forward before it actually pops free and slips up and gets pushed into the chamber by the bolt. On the Magpul, the feed lips start farther back, and they also end, I mean, it's not a big difference, but you can see the end of the lips here and the end of where the lip ends there. It ends a little bit sooner. So when the bolt's pushing this out of the magazine, it pops free and loses control just a half a second earlier. And I think that's why, in my case at least, this is feeding so well. And like I said, I haven't tried this in the dirt and the muck and, you know, in the rain and everything, but I mean, there is zero effort with this magazine, and I think that's fantastic, because I like to load my rounds long, and I think a lot of people do that too. One of the main performance benefits there is by seating the bullet further out of the case here, you in turn leave more room inside the case for powder, and that lets you get more powder in there, and you can get the bullet moving a little bit faster, all the while not running into the pressure problems that you'll get by really cramming the case full of powder and having the bullet seated to the standard magazine length. So by loading them a little longer, you get a little bit more speed, a little bit more muzzle velocity out of it, and it all works, you know, a little bit better if you can get away with it. If there's room in your chamber and there's room in the throat to load them longer, that's beneficial. And I've been doing that since, you know, the word go. And like I said, this load shoots in the single digits for standard deviation. I think it was 7 feet per second the last time I chronographed it. You know, and I don't want to mess with that. You know, even if it, you know, makes feeding just a touch easier on the first 2 or 3 rounds. You know, and I'm just showing the differences between the magazines. Like in the real world, and when I'm actually behind this and I've got, you know, my shoulder and my chest that I can push against, like I can get it in there and feed it, and it works, it's reliable. I don't have problems with it, but those first couple rounds are tight because I'm fighting against all that spring tension in the magazine. So I don't know if maybe Magpul has done sort of what they did with the regular PMAGs over on the AR-15 platform. Maybe they made these just a touch longer so there's a little bit more room in the spring, sorry, more room in the mag for the spring to compress and get out of the way. But whatever they did, at least sitting here on the bench, this thing seems to feed really well, and I wanted to you know, get kind of the first set of thoughts out the door on this pretty quick, because I'm pretty impressed so far just trying it here on the bench. I'm going to try and get this out later this week. I'm working on some other stuff for the site, so I'm going to try and run a bunch of ammo through it live fire, but I like what I see so far. And if you guys want these, Midway USA's got them, and Brownells has the 5-rounders, and hopefully here in the next month or two we'll see the 10-rounders released too. I can't imagine it's going to be a whole lot longer, just because a 10-round mag is not that much different than a 5-round. It's just a little bit longer, and the spring's a little longer. You know, the feed lips and the internal dimensions, and, you know, I'm sure they had guys out here, you know, banging these around, kicking them and dropping them and everything to make sure they weren't cracking or splitting. That's where all the real product development and all the research time goes into. Making it a little longer for more rounds shouldn't be that big a deal. So I'm really hoping before Christmas we see the 10-rounders popping up on usual places to acquire stuff too. But if you guys have any questions, you know, go ahead and shoot me an email. But like I said, if you want them, Midway's got them, and so does Brownells now.